Hi, and welcome to our session on alignment and misalignment, which is another of the Good Projects professional development sessions. Today, we're going to look at what this concept of alignment and misalignment is and do a reflective activity where we think about some examples of how we've handled misalignments in practice in our work. So just as a recap of what we've looked at in this professional development series so far, we've gone over the meaning of good work according to these three E's of excellence, ethics, and engagement. We've talked about concepts like values and responsibility, as well as mission and purpose. And we've done a lot of this through the lens of yourself or individuals. But today we want to widen the lens and think about what does it mean beyond individuals when different people or groups are interacting together. That's where a concept like alignment and misalignment comes in at the level of group dynamics or stakeholder dynamics. So alignment and misalignment, we would define in these particular ways. So alignment being a situation or set of circumstances in which people share similar ideas about their work, their goals in that work, and their processes for getting it done. And then misalignment being a set of circumstances where people have different ideas about their work, their goals, and the processes in that work. So you can see here the contrast between alignment, again, being the situation where people are sharing different views or goals, and then misalignment being a situation in which people might have quite different ideas on the table about their work and what it means. To look at alignment and misalignment in a real-world example, we want to talk about these two fields from our initial research into the meaning of good work. So on the one hand, we saw in genetics, which was a field that we were looking at the time on the Good Project, genetics was a field that was very aligned amongst all the different stakeholders. So between bench scientists who were doing the actual hard science of genetics, people who were leading genetics companies or corporations, maybe in pharmaceuticals, and people who were on the receiving end of genetics treatments, doctors as well. All of these people were very aligned around a same goal of promoting and expanding human life and livelihood through scientific discovery. So this idea was really able to energize people and to unite them around a common vision of what it meant for them to be engaging in this field and for them to be doing the work that was required to advance genetic science. On the other hand, journalism was a misaligned profession at the time of the research, and maybe in some ways today still is a misaligned profession. So journalists face difficult circumstances at the time of our research in the fact that perhaps there were individual journalists who wanted to be researching or working on particular stories, maybe that weren't a priority for their editors. Maybe readers wanted different stories or entertaining content that wasn't what journalists wanted to work on. There were also advertisers who were exerting pressures on journalistic outlets. So all of the different stakeholders in journalism kind of wanted something different, and were trying to get something different out of their engagement in this field. So again, journalism being an example of a misaligned profession. Why is this important, or why are we talking about this concept? So when stakeholders are aligned, or there's this set of circumstances that results in alignment and agreement about how work is done, good work can be easier to do. So when people share a common vision for what it means to do your work, what the processes are, and what the goals are, it's easy to find a sense of engagement. It's easier to do work that is ethical. It's easier to potentially do work that's more excellent. So those three E's can be easier to accomplish than if circumstances were reversed. And this might be reinforced by some of the concepts that we've been talking about. So sharing common values, a sense of mission, and maybe certain systemic factors, like a particular field being directed towards one particular goal, as we spoke about with genetics, that can help really bring about alignment in a particular domain. Why misalignment is challenging is that misalignment, by contrast, can make doing good work, according to those three E's, a little more challenging. Maybe if you're finding that there are different stakeholder groups that are on very different pages about what it means to do the work that you're involved in, or what your field should be achieving, It will be much harder to do work that's engaging for individuals, but also that's ethical. Maybe if people have different ideas of what it even means to be ethical, it's harder to actually achieve that in practice, or there could be various ideas at play in tension. But this is not a totally hopeless situation, we like to say. If you're attuned to the misalignments that are present within a field, it might open the way to more creative problem solving on both the individual and system-wide scales. So maybe there are things that you can do yourself that respond to those misalignments, maybe opening up certain conversations, or maybe on the system-wide level, maybe there are things you can try to do within organizations or within the field to try to bring about better alignment or highlight at least those areas where there are misalignment as reasons why there might be tension over certain ideas or goals. So if we think about all of the stakeholders in education today, which is a field that many of us are watching this video coming from, there are a lot of different priorities on the table and a lot of different people involved in education. So there are the educators themselves. Many of you watching might be educators, people who teach others. There are administrators who are involved in running schools, running school districts, running school networks. There are students, the actual people who are being taught, their parents or their families as well who have a stake in all of this. The government, as we know, has a huge stake in education and in setting policies and overseeing assessment or accountability measures oftentimes for schools. And then there are others. There might be other groups like researchers, like the group that I'm coming from at the Good Project. There might be certain policy organizations that advocate for particular policies but aren't part of the government. So there's a lot of different people involved and a lot of different priorities on the table in education. So with that, you might want to consider, is education today aligned, misaligned, or somewhere in the middle as a field? You can take a moment to pause and either consider this on your own or talk about it with colleagues, and you can think about why you might answer the question the way that you would. So coming back, we wanted to think a little bit about how to bridge misalignments. And a lot of this might depend on the particular circumstances that you're coming from. So I don't want to present these as one size fits all solutions, but just some ideas that come to mind about how it might be possible to address or bridge together different stakeholder groups across difference when there is a case of misalignment going on. So sometimes making the implicit explicit can help. Sometimes highlighting what the values of different stakeholder groups are or what their goals are and how those might diverge from one another can establish where we're on different paths and how we might unite or bring people back together towards a shared or common goal if that's possible. This is also related to the idea of open dialogue and communication around these issues. Having a strong mission implementation is also something that we think about. So in an organization or in a field, if you have a strong mission or a sense of why we're doing the work that we're doing, that can help unite people around a common vision. Problem solving as well, so addressing misalignments creatively, and then maybe establishing new systems and routines related to that as well. So there could be ways to bring people together to have maybe a little bit more dialogue again, or maybe establishing routine check-ins with different stakeholder groups. For example, if you work in a school where parents are really misaligned with certain aspects of a curriculum at your school, how can you establish maybe a family night with them as a new routine that could help them see a little bit more closely what the purpose of the curriculum is, or what voice they can have or say they can have as the parents in how that curriculum is implemented, if that feels appropriate. Again, these aren't one size fits all solutions. And actually, I want to say that in certain cases, it might be that it can be more challenging to make the implicit explicit. If you're in a situation in which perhaps there are certain misalignments that are difficult to talk about or might be the result of cultural differences or wider societal debates, it can be really difficult to open up conversations around that. And this set of recommendations may not work for you in that same way. So it's important to think creatively and also think about what works for you and for your own environment. So I wanted to give you the chance, again, either on your own or in groups, if you're watching this together with others, to think about how you've handled some misalignments in your own work. So in your practice as an educator, think about a time when you faced a misalignment that could be related to anything from your practice, and consider what you learned or took away from the situation that you could share with others. So it can be tempting to think about an example of a time when maybe you were dealing with a variety of perspectives and couldn't really reconcile them. It's possible that maybe you left the situation without feeling like you had really resolved it. That's okay. You don't have to pick a situation in which you were able to make a perfect solution. And often there are no perfect solutions to misalignments. But we wanted to try to think through this conversation constructively and just try to consider the takeaways that you would have from this situation that you think could be helpful for others to know. What did you learn from this situation? Or even if you weren't able to resolve it, what kind of strategies did you implement that you think could be helpful for other people to know about? So I'll give you a moment to think about what that situation might mean for you. And then how you can talk about it is using this quick thinking routine. So people, perspectives, and me. So for people, who was involved in the situation or who were the stakeholder groups? You can think about maybe in a school if it was the faculty, administration, parents, community members, students, maybe the government again, maybe it's other people I haven't named. Perspective. So what were the divergent perspectives on the situation that you're talking about between these different stakeholder groups? What was intention? What was causing the situation to be a case of misalignment? And then for me, how did you respond? What are the actions or strategies that you think that you used in this situation that could be useful for others? So take some time to either pause here and write down some thoughts or discuss with others. And when you're ready, just trying to think about how we can bring this idea of alignment and misalignment to your students is how we wanted to wrap up. So there might be ways you want to prompt your students to be more alert to alignment and misalignment in their own lives. This can be a really helpful frame to thinking about, well, if I'm on maybe a soccer team or something like that, maybe there are things that I'm facing in a leadership position in that regards, or any other activity that a student might be a part of. Maybe I have different stakeholder groups I'm navigating, the school, my teammates, my parent groups, maybe other stakeholder groups that might be present in a student's life. This frame of alignment and misalignment could help them think through what might be going wrong in a case of misalignment, or at least where that situation is coming from, and help creatively think about what to do next. And it can also help when looking to future goals for students. So considering what career field they want to go into, or what kind of job they might have after they leave school, or even what they're doing now, they could consider the alignment and misalignment of those stakeholders, kind of like I just alluded to. So hopefully this can be a helpful way to open conversation with students of all ages around this topic. And then to conclude, what is one idea or practice from today's session that you'd like to share with others at your school? Could be a way to wrap this up for you. So take a second to consider that. And with that, thanks for joining us today to talk about alignment and misalignment. Hope that you found it interesting, and maybe you will be more aware of how alignment and misalignment play out in all areas of life in the future. Thank you.